And it's something that's been bubbling under for quite a while. It took an interesting turn yesterday because the news came out that bogus TikTok doc Matthew Lani had walked free, despite being apprehended over the weekend for impersonating a doctor. And it was shocked many of us that he actually seems to now be a free man. Well, that charge was dropped due apparently to a lack of evidence. Lani's lawyer says he was just acting as a doctor online to entertain people. The NPA seems to agree somewhat, saying lying is not a crime. It's only when you lie under oath or perhaps profit from lying that it can become a criminal offence. There's some important lessons here about the truth and social media. I'm joined now by media lawyer Emma Sadleir Berkowitz. Emma, thank you so much for joining us. I mean, this case has completely fascinated all of us. There's so many levels to it. But if we look at what happened yesterday, there was not enough evidence. His lawyer is saying he was joking, he was pretending. It was play acting. And therefore, he hasn't harmed anyone. You know, he hasn't pretended to be a doctor to defraud anyone. He hasn't pretended to be a doctor to make money. He hasn't lied under oath. Do you think that Matthew Lani's lawyer has got a point?
In short, no. I was absolutely flabbergasted by what happened in court, or more accurately outside of court, where there was a sort of ad hoc press conference yesterday. I thought it was extraordinary for them to come out and say there's no evidence. Well, what is content on social media if it doesn't constitute evidence? And I appreciate that there are a whole lot of fake accounts that have popped up, but we know that there was this account which was created and managed by this person called Matthew Lani, who was styling himself as a doctor, not just styling himself as a doctor, actually giving medical advice, selling medicines, being invited on radio shows on the basis that he was an expert in his field. I think it's absolutely extraordinary that these charges have been withdrawn. The accounts have been deleted, so there may have been an issue around obtaining the evidence which is no longer available online. It is a good reminder, Sally, as to why when we do come across content online which causes any kind of harm, we need to be pretty good about obtaining evidence. I've always said historically take screenshots, even more accurate than screenshots because they're so easy to fabricate now, is to do a screen record or to use somebody else's phone and record the videos playing on that phone. So there may have been an issue around that, but we've seen hundreds of cases in South Africa, thousands of cases internationally, where social media content has been used as evidence successfully. Just 2 weeks ago, Basitsana Kumalo was successful in obtaining a judgment for that tweet.
Because that was proven to be a lie. But in that case, Basitsana Kumalo and her family were able to prove how that lie had harmed them. Because the NPA said yesterday, it is not a criminal offence to lie. And I think for me, that's a really big wake-up call. Because you can lie on social media, and unless you hurt someone or damage someone in some way, it seems there's no law against lying, right? So it's why you lie.
So certainly, you know, if somebody defames me, if somebody posts that Emma Sadleir's a fraud, she's bought her degree, she's a total scam artist, that is a lie, right? And I can sue for defamation.
Yes, but it's hurt you. But if it doesn't hurt anyone, if someone goes, hey, I'm a doctor.
We have a person.
Yeah.
So it's important to note, though, Sally, that the one charge has been withdrawn, but there is still another charge which is ongoing, and that is the criminal complaint laid by the doctor who was being impersonated.
Yes.
And for me, there's no question that he did suffer harm as a result of somebody posing as him on social media, pretending to be him, using his real qualifications in this way. So I do believe there is harm there, but I do think that there's harm, and I think that the whole medical profession it's so important that there is trust and integrity in the medical profession. And if you're going to have people holding themselves out as doctors giving advice, then I think that is just a wild position to be in. So I think that there is harm to the profession. I think that this has brought the profession into disrepute in a huge way. And I don't believe that there are not victims, because you know, the extent to which people do take the content that they see on social media as fact is very apparent to all of us.
Emma,
people seek advice for legal
Wouldn't
advice,
it rest,
financial advice.
I'm with you, and I hear what you're saying, But a lie in itself, a lie is not against the law. A lie that causes some sort of harm. So in other words, it has to rest on showing that harm has been caused. And I think what his lawyer is saying, we were just having fun, you know, and until someone comes forward and says, but I took his advice and I ended up with this and this and this medical condition, isn't it very hard to prosecute?
You know, I think there are a few things I want to say. The first is this idea that we should treat social media differently to any publication platform. I really believe the NPA has erred here, the investigators and the NPA. The investigators seemingly for not obtaining the evidence, the NPA for saying that nobody has been harmed so quickly. I just do not believe it. And I think that we really need to take a moment and think to ourselves, if anybody is able to style themselves as a professional and go onto social media, create accounts and give advice in a world where people genuinely take advice on social media, we're asking for trouble. And the advice given, you know, what seemed to really come out in that press conference yesterday was, oh, it's just social media, it's just TikTok, it's just entertainment. That's not the position anymore. People genuinely go to these platforms for advice. And I think that there's a gap, I think, especially around TikTok, there's a generational gap. People who understand it, who live in it, who are on it all the time, and people who just think of it as people doing stupid TikTok dances and it being a very frivolous platform. It's not these days. You know, people were calling TikTok the Ukraine war, the TikTok war of the century, because of all the content emanating from the front lines, raw footage, real reporting. You know, these are real platforms, and the kind of airtime they're getting, Sally, I'm afraid to say, is much greater than the airtime you and I are getting tonight on television, or that we'll get on a billboard or on the front page of the newspaper. The numbers that he was getting were extraordinary. And to say that the real world laws don't apply to him because it's just TikTok and it's frivolous and entertainment, it's just nonsense.
Yeah. The truth is, though, Emma, that on social media there are a lot of liars and they carry on doing their business. I follow one guy called Dr. Ids, who is actually a doctor. He spends all his time debunking nutritional nonsense that people come onto social media. Oats are bad for you. This is bad for you. Don't drink this. Do drink that. He spends hour after hour absolutely schooling people in what is nonsense. So for many of those people, the reputational loss might put them off from continued lying. But until that lie, whether it's in the real world or whether it's on social media, until that lie has evidence surely to show that someone has been harmed or an oath has been broken, you know, and as you say, you might find that the Health Professions Council of South Africa says, well, you've impugned our reputation. That's the harm to us. We will take this forward. But the truth is, Emma, lies are par for the course on social media. We absolutely know this. And 95% of them, I would say, there is absolutely no consequence.
I love what you say, and I do think you're absolutely right that the answer to disinformation, misinformation is more information. So I, like you, follow a lot of people who spend their lives debunking myths on social media. I also just want to note that I shouldn't say Dr. Matthew Lani because there's nothing doctor about him. Matthew Lani did come out yesterday and say, I'm going to sue the Department of Health for defamation. Well, yeah, good luck with that, because the defense to defamation is that what you're saying is true. So for them to say that he's a bogus doctor, he is a bogus doctor. He never had a medical degree. From what we can tell, he doesn't even have a matric certificate. And I think this continued recidivism, where he just keeps going back, and they knew he was going to break back into the Helen Joseph Hospital, and they were kind of waiting for him. You know, for me, this is a dangerous person. And if he wants to come and sue me for defamation for saying that, then I look forward to the challenge.
So, Emma, this is the thing that, you know, we were having such a great debate about this in the newsroom because it's completely fascinating, because you can get away with a lot. And many people are not stopped. That's the reality. So, as a social media consumer, how do you detect the BS? Quite frankly, how do you suss out that something's not true? Because you can be led down the garden path, whether it's false medical information, whether it's false news information, whatever it is. We want to be smart consumers of social media. It's very hard, I think, for the people who run these platforms to control all of it. So as consumers, what's your best advice for spotting the BS?
Yeah, so I think that the stage we've got to is almost to say, presume everything you read online is not true until you can go and prove that it's true. Especially at the moment, we're living in very heated political times. If we think about what's going on in the Middle East, if we think about what's even going on closer to home, we're entering a very hot political climate. I think that the ground rule has got to be presume everyone you meet online is not who they say they are until you can prove that they are, and presume everything you read online is not true unless you are able to verify it. So you've got to go and check it against credible sources. If you don't know what a credible source is, then don't be sharing it. If something evokes a particularly strong emotional reaction, makes you incredibly angry, sad, deliriously happy, that's usually a red flag that something is fake news. Fake news I use as a generic term for misinformation and disinformation. And when in doubt, don't share the content. And I think that's got to be the ground rule, especially at the moment. As I say, there is just, not just where we're dealing with fake doctors, where we're actually dealing with a war. Please be very, very careful about what content you're sharing.
Yeah, it's such a good point, Emma, about the war, because we know that there's a propaganda war underway in the Middle East at the very same time. So it's also got a very, very serious edge to it. Thank you so much, as always, for chatting to us. Fascinating views there from media lawyer Emma Sadleir Berkowitz. Now,